welcome all the teachers here of WOW program who are present in this session today on Prosodic Reading. Thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of Stones to Milestones, I would like to welcome you to the training webinar of teachers of our partner schools. So far, we have engaged the teachers as well as children of WOW Universe with amazing storytelling sessions that we conducted over a period of 2 months. And yes, we'll continue doing that. And now we are ready to engage the WOW teachers exclusively for teacher training and capacity building webinars like today. As you are aware, the topic of the webinar is prosodic reading, reading aloud with expression for 21st century English teachers. The webinar is being organized as part of our Engage initiative for teacher training and capacity building. So wait for more webinars like this. As for the structure of the session today, we will cover elements of prosodic reading, why prosodic reading, and how it is connected with comprehension, some tips and tricks, and lastly, Q&As, as we are flooded with questions received from all of you to be answered by our trainer and speaker for today, Jagrati Gala. And in case you still have questions, I would request you do write in the chat box. We will try to cover as many questions as possible. Yes, and I can see questions already flooding in, rather more questions flooding in. Thank you so much. And yeah, now is the time. I would like to welcome our trainer and speaker of the session today, Jagrati Gala. This is my pleasure and honor to introduce Jagrati. She's trained in education and transformational practices, an avid reader, and an ace storyteller. Many of you would have already experienced her in the magical storytelling session on City of Stories. Yes. Her professional training spans emotional intelligence, nonviolent communication, human process work, and appreciative inquiry. Some of you may already be aware that she is the founding member of, yes, Stones to Milestones, and a mentor to many of us. She is a management team member at Amrit Vidyalaya, Vadodara. She is a coach for inner transformation of groups and individuals and a faculty at Leadership That Works. Jagrati, these are a few, just a few of many hats that you wear as you personify diversity and you believe in lifelong learning through reading, training, coaching, and mentoring. So today, the ingredients are beautifully laid out in front of all of us in terms of program structure. And now we all are eagerly waiting for you to do your magic and create the flavorful recipe of prosodic reading for all of us. So over to you. And yes, participants, do write in your questions in the chat box. We will try to take it up. As many as possible, we'll try to take it up towards the last leg of the session. Over to you, Jagrati. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Preeti. For everyone, I also want to say a couple of lines with my partner in crime here, Preeti. She's been working with me to bring this seminar alive and bring all of us to this space. Preeti, when I asked her, Preeti, I want to say something about you. So 2 words she said that I'm an avid reader. And that's something that I think almost everyone at Stones to Milestones is very proud to say that that's their first identity. And Preeti is also senior manager and she's a trainer. Many of you know her. Many of you have experienced her musical language and her warm heart and her deep desire to build teacher capacity. And that is something which is common and it's shared I enjoy building teacher capacity. I enjoy wearing, several, yes, I do. I'm blessed and privileged to wear several hats. And yet, from all of these hats that I wear, I think my favorite ones are uh, having to be a mother. It's just a fantastic identity that I am so, so, so happy that I have. The other one is being with children and telling them stories. And that's where I hope that, when all my life's work is done, that's all I'll have to do is sit with children and tell them stories. And I deeply enjoy building capacity in people, building their capacity for their own transformation, building their capacity to be able to do new things, because there is just so much life has to offer. And I have enjoyed that bounty from life, and I enjoy being somebody who can support others to grow more. And so here we are today with this very, exotic sounding name for our webinar, right? Prosodic reading. I mean, prosody. It's even when I heard it the first time, maybe about 15, 17 years ago, I had to go to the dictionary to figure out what it was. It sounded super technical. It sounded serious, and but actually, it was about something that I was already doing. And it was so delightful to know that something that I do, which is what, telling stories, reading stories to my children. I was just a parent then, not having any other work, really started in my life. But everything that I learned about being a good reader, or fostering good reading for children, or all of that things that we have developed at Stones to Milestones around reading, some of it started with just this role of being a mother who wanted to get her children to love books and to love the world of books and storytelling and everything. And somehow they enjoyed it very much. They didn't really actually take to reading much, because they would much rather be read to, but then that's them. So prosodic reading, my friends, is an exotic sounding term, but a very, very beautiful, ordinary bonding activity that all of us as teachers, or as as parents, we do with our children. And today we're going to unwrap that gift of prosodic reading and get to know more about it. And I was, when I was talking with Preeti about putting up this seminar and all, some of the things we were sharing was our earliest memories of prosodic reading. When was it that we remember we, heard something which was prosodic reading, or which was somebody reading something with expression, with meaning, in a way that it was beautiful to hear. And so I remembered the news readers of old Doordarshan times, and Rini Simon, Gitanjali Iyer, Salma, and it was just it was so beautiful. And even before them, there was I think Indu Mirani, if I don't, if I recollect her name right. Yes, I'm ancient. I go back so long, right? And also there used to be a lady called Sabira Merchant, who ran What's the Good Word program on TV. And something about the way they spoke, it was magical. They used language to bring the world alive for us. And even though news reading is something which is, matter of fact, you're sending out just what has happened everywhere. It's not like reading a storybook. There's no drama happening in there. And even despite that, newsreaders manage to keep your attention captured, and you really have to understand what it is that news is conveying. And so everything depended on their voice. Everything depended on how they pronounced the words. Everything depended on the way they moved their voice. And we'll unwrap more of this in our session today. But I do remember that they were among my first teachers, and the first ones who inspired me to get more and more drawn to this world of how can we. I love language. It's a passion, And while I take in a lot of language, I also have a love for giving language out into this world. And so I was drawn to this whole practice. And then, of course, we had Amitabh Bachchan and Gulzar Saab, um, and several other people whose poetry rendition and all I enjoyed through my growing up years. So I never really went for any formal classes in all of this, but it was just passion. It was a joy. I wanted to do it. And so I just picked it all up. I never knew one day I'm going to be using it in my life, in my professional work or field. But the drama around it, all of it was fantastic. And somewhere I think I'm running ahead of myself. So there was something I wanted to read out to all of you to inspire you in this moment before we even step into the nuts and bolts of today's topic. And so I have selected a passage from this book, The Rights of a Reader. So this book is The Rights of a Reader by Daniel Pennack and illustrated by Quentin Blake. In chapter 1, there's so much power in the first few lines, and I especially want to read these first few lines because many times in this entire work that we have done with reading, all of us trainers, we often get questions from parents and we get questions from teachers, all well-meaning, very well-meaning. But their questions are, ma'am, how do we make our children read? Ma'am, how do we, it's just exactly this question. How do we make our children read? And so this is an answer for that. You can't make someone read. Just as you can't make them fall in love or dream. You can try, of course. Go on, love me. Dream. Read, 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 goddammit. I'm telling you to read. Go to your room and read. What happens next? Nothing. The young reader nods off over her book. The window suddenly looked wide open onto somewhere more tantalizing. She flew out that way to escape, but she sleeps wearily. The book is still open in front of her. If we opened the bedroom door, we'd find her sitting at her desk, dutifully reading. Even if we tiptoed upstairs, she'd hear us coming. Do you like it then? She can't say no. That would be a crime. Books are sacred. How can you not like reading? No, she'll tell us. The descriptions are too long. Reassured, we head back down to the television. Her remark might even provoke a heated debate with our friends. She thinks the descriptions are too long. She's got a point, of course. We live in an audiovisual age. But the novelists of the 19th century, they had to describe everything. There's no reason to let them skip half a book. Why waste our energy? She's gone back to sleep. And so this is the tragedy that our children face today. They are a generation who live in a very new stimulus context than we grew up in. We did not have everything that they have. We didn't have the television. And all of it is great. I mean, I love it. I love my television. I love my computer. I love my iPad. I love my phone. They do so much for me. They even make, my Kindle app, it makes reading much easier for me. And it's different from the world that I grew up in, where I only had books, which took me to all those places that I wanted to go. But our children have more choices. And yet, we value books as they are sacred. And when we come from that holier than thou place, when we think this is so valuable, children must read. When we're coming from that place, we've already lost the child. Because children are very pure. They don't have shoulds. They respond to dreams, they respond to energy, they respond to love, they respond to passion. And so here's something else that I want to read out from the same book, chapter 38. Petos was a teacher who didn't drum knowledge into people, but made a gift of what he knew. He was less a teacher than a master troubadour, one of those jugglers of words who haunted the hostelries on the way to Santiago, performing for illiterate pilgrims. Even I'm not very sure what this reference is, but it sounds like that Petos, as a teacher, had all those qualities that a master dramatist would have to entertain people. And because everything must start somewhere, each year he gathered his flock to listen to the oral origins of a novel. His voice was aimed at a public who didn't know how to read. He opened his eyes. He lit lanterns. He set people off on the road to books, to a pilgrimage without end or certainty, the path of human toward fellow human. And these are lovely lines now. The most important thing was that he read everything out loud to us. From the word go, he trusted in our desire to understand. When someone reads aloud, they raise you to the level of the book. They give you reading as a gift. And so there was a time when you and I, we didn't know how to read, just like those illiterate pilgrims of many centuries ago. There were fewer people who knew to read. And so things that were important were read out to them, like a troubadour reads out. But when we didn't know how to read, we had parents, maybe grandparents, maybe an uncle or an aunt, maybe some loving teachers who took the trouble to read to us. And if you can just evoke that memory for yourself right now, the memory of somebody who did that for you, and how it was to be introduced into the world of books through somebody holding your hand in that loving way, whether in kindergarten or class 3 or, wherever in your life. And when that person does a great job of reading aloud, wow, what an experience. As a child, you can get completely lost because just the voice of that person brings everything alive. And it is an art. It's not something that we all can naturally do. But we all have the capacity if we pay a little attention to it. If we were lucky enough to have good role models who read beautifully to us, there's a high likelihood that we will also have some of that flowing in our bloodstream. If we are lucky enough to be enamored by theater, as language teachers, just loving the sound of language, then we'll have that in our bloodstream. If we are diligent enough to connect to that world, to keep listening to good language, it creeps into our bloodstream. And if we are caring enough to give it out as a gift to the world, to our children, then nothing more beautiful than that. And we can do more with it, and we can learn about it. Because as much as I know teachers who do a fabulous job of reading out loud, I've also heard teachers, not for any fault of theirs, I'm not blaming or, but I must name it. Um, they don't do a great job of it. There's a kind of a flatness to reading out loud, which just disconnects your audience from you. And this is not just about teachers of language, whether you teach English, whether you teach Hindi, Marathi, Sanskrit, any of the state languages that you are a teacher of. It's not just language, it is also something that goes with science, social studies, history, geography, anything. It's about bringing all of those elements into your communication. So let me share today's agenda with you. I have a few things here with me, and I have a short video, I have some audio clips. As we go along, I'm hoping to make it not so much of a monologue, but more of something that, kind of feels like a workshop. I do wish it was a smaller circle, we were in person together, and we were actually interacting, but maybe in this platform, we have to be grateful for the number of people we can reach in one time. And also that we are going to be spending the last 20, 30 minutes interacting through question answers, and we'll do our best. So when I am pulling things out, which I have for you, because of technology, I may get a little lost here and there. So please don't mind that. Okay. So let me share, first of all, I have, after all of this, I have, can you confirm if you can, sorry, I think I may have to go out and do this again. Sorry. I think I have to first set it up and then share it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Yes. A big warm welcome to each and every one of you, and we are so glad you are here. Our agenda for today, we are going to spend some time understanding prosodic reading. What is it? And what's important about it? Yeah, what's the big deal? What are the elements of prosodic reading? How do we bring more of this into our classroom? And question and answers. So let's jump into the first one, and I may move between the slides and, so prosodic reading, what is it? Prosody means music. It's basically music, bringing music and emotion into your language. And as we know, music is about the flow. So that's why I use this picture also to convey. This is about our sound, our voice, and how our voice rises and falls, and how it expands and contracts, and how it stresses and fades away, and how it rolls over and excites, and how it conveys concern and sadness and imagination and calmness. It's fantastic, this voice, right? You can do so much with it. And so prosody is about conveying meaning for text through your sound and your voice and your diction and your words. I'm sorry. So prosody is about beauty. It's about emotion, it's about expression, and about wonder. And let's look at why does it matter. So I'm going to play something which one of our team members was very sporting to, to record something which is not prosody. Okay, so I'm going to share something with you, which is just a sound. You will not see anything on the video. And we listen to something that is read out.
A Caterpillar's Voice, a Maasai legend, East Africa. Once upon a time, a caterpillar crawled inside a hare's house when the hare was away and set about making himself comfortable. When the hare returned home, he noticed new marks on the ground going into the cave. He called, "Who is in my house?" The caterpillar boomed out in a loud voice, "It is I, yes, I who crushes rhinos to the earth and tramples elephants into dust." The hare hopped about crying, "What can a small animal like me do with a creature who crushes rhinos and tramples elephants?" He soon met a jackal and asked the jackal to talk to.
So is there a part of you that is saying enough already? We can't listen, right? It just does not make any sense. And it's just sounding flat, dull. It sounds as if you're not there, and it sounds as if the reader doesn't care. Yeah. And let me share the same thing in when we read it in prosody. How does it sound? Once upon a time, a caterpillar crawled inside a hare's house when the hare was away and set about making himself comfortable. When the hare returned home, he noticed new marks on the ground going into the cave. He called, "Who's in my house?" The caterpillar boomed out in a loud voice, "It is I, yes, I, who crushes rhinos to the earth and tramples elephants into dust." The hare hopped about, crying, "What can a small animal like me do with a creature who crushes rhinos and tramples elephants?" So let's pause here and let's see what was different in both, right? And so I'm going to pause for a moment and I'm going to invite some of the responses. What did you notice was different in both the read alouds? So I'm going to be checking my chat. Yes, so modulation, expression, pitch and intonation, liveliness, pulling the tone, stress on words, okay, creating an interest, vocal range, visualization of characters, pauses. Yes. So many things you've picked up, right? You don't need a webinar. You know what's important. These things are important, everything that you have been naming. Okay? Let's listen to another example. Because prosody is also about poetry. We call it recitation. For read aloud, we say read aloud with expressions. We don't use the word prosody. But let me also now do the same thing with the poem and let's see how that comes out. Okay.
The dancing bear, Rachel Field. Slowly he turns himself round and round, lifting his paws with care, twisting his head in a sort of a bow to the people watching there. His keeper, grinding a wheezy tune, jerks at the iron chain, and the dusty, patient bear.
Okay, right? We like, sometimes we have recitation competitions, and the image I get is, like, and I'm going to do this like standing up because that's how it happens. So, children, they're sometimes taught to recite like this.
Yes, participants will just see. Um, she'll be back. Yes. In the meantime, please write in your questions in the chat box.
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, everyone. Thank you, Preeti, for holding it. Do you want to finish something, Preeti? Or can I go ahead?
Please carry on. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost the connection. So here's reading out that poem with prosodic inflection, and then let's see how it is. Dancing Bear, The Dancing Bear by Rachel Field. Slowly he turns himself round and round, lifting his paws with care, twisting his head in a sort of bow to the people watching there. His keeper, grinding a wheezy tune, jerks at the iron chain, and the dusty, patient bear goes through his solemn tricks again. Only his eyes are still and fixed in a wide, bewildered stare, more like a child's lost in woods at night than the eyes of a big brown bear. And I'm guessing, I'm not saying it's the best reading. There are many different ways, different people have unique styles of reading. But what I want to draw your attention to is, how do we bring text alive? And we bring text alive, and I'm going to go to all of those pieces. But first, let me take a few steps back. And let's, when we were children, how do adults, babies, infants, right? And, I'm thinking most of us have held a baby in our life and talked to a baby. And what do we normally do when we talk to a baby? We go, oh, look who's looking so handsome today. Oh, Baba, are you hungry? Oh, the butterflies. We don't talk like this to anybody except infants. And yet, when we see an infant, we drop normal speech and we step into this. We go, goo, 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 ga. And we do that because that is a very natural way for babies to learn language. Babies can pick up language, and I am aware that just now not have the same bandwidth, so you may be experiencing some lag. So let me pause a second and check with my team. Tushar, is it coming as a lag? Can you just let me know?
Yes, Jagrati, a little bit. Yes.
Okay. Well, I can't help it because my 5G has gone off right now, and I'll only have to wait for it to come back again.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm requesting everyone to bear with me.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll speak a little slower. And so this baby talk is very, very important, because in baby talk, what we do is we exaggerate the sounds of the language. The vowels become longer, wider, softer. our tone rises and falls. And a lot of our emotion comes into what we're saying because we're really connecting with the baby. And also because, it doesn't have to make any sense most of the time to very, very little babies, right? So you can just talk nonsense. And when we talk, but even through that nonsense talking, babies are picking up. Because here's a secret, which or an amazing fact, which some of you might know, but some of you might not. And I'm speaking so many words, and you can hear all the words separately, right? But actually, there is no real pause. Just watch my mouth. There is no place in this sentence that I am really pausing till now. And when I pause, I am not making any sound. But other than this, every time I speak, my words are following one after the other. And yet, you hear different words. You hear different words. Your brain hears the pause when actually the illusion is that it's the pause is an illusion. There is no pause. Follow my mouth. Isn't it amazing? When we are speaking, we do not pause. So when we listen to a new language that we do not know, we cannot understand that language because it is just a series of sounds one after the other, which only stop when the speaker wants to take a breath or wants to stop and emphasize something. But otherwise, we are just hearing a series of sounds. So, how do we make out the pause, and how do we know that this is a word and this is a sentence and this is a paragraph? Our ears do that. Our eyes come later. The first reception of language is through our ears. And so, if a mama is saying to her baby, "Ooh, shoo, mama is so happy," the baby doesn't know what that sentence means. And the baby doesn't know that mama is so happy are 4 different words. But even before going to school, by the time the child is 2.5 years old, the child will know it. The child will know the meaning of those 4 words and will know that mama is one group of sounds which points to this lady who loves me, and happy is another group of sounds which points to her smile and energy. And so is group of sound, is one sound which means a lot. And so baby cannot explain that back to us. The infant cannot explain it back to us, but the infant understands. Even if they never go to school and never become literate, they can still communicate. So that's the magic and mystery of language. We learn it through our ears. And therefore, prosody is so important, because if we were to make the correct pauses and the correct stress and bring our emotion in so that our voice rises and falls to match the emotion, then we are offering our children the gift of language, which is used in a beautiful, accurate way, because the end goal of all communication is to convey and receive meaning. If you cannot understand something, there's no point in being in that communication, right? Music is abstract, but language is not. Language is concrete. And we use language as human beings for so many purposes. And so the very basic foundation of being able to communicate well with each other, there are 2 aspects to it. Being raised among adults who use language in a beautiful way, expressive way, emotional way, and then being exposed to an education system where you learn to read in a similar way. So your ears are trained first, and then your eyes and ears work together to create the music in your mind as you are reading. So I'm going to share my screen again and move ahead a little bit. So we just talked about, why does it matter? How does it matter? So as I just explained, baby talk builds language. And also, teachers, we are going to be putting all of this into a note and get it out to all of you who have attended and registered for the webinar by Monday. So don't worry about it. If you're interested in this, a note will be coming your way soon. Prosodic Read Aloud builds fluency and connection. Fluency is the ability to read language accurately and at a certain pace. So for instance, if I were to just read something from here, and somebody is a new trying to read it, and in the initial stages, they're not fluent. So when somebody is not fluent, how do they read? The difficult words is where they pause and they don't have meaning. So what makes teaching it so difficult is that reading is ultimately a retreat into silence. So that's not so much of an exaggeration. I'm sure there are many teachers here who have seen students in the class, building their language, and when they are little kids. So what we want is for all of that stopgap because it doesn't make any meaning if we are, pausing in this way, in this breaking way, right? And you've lost the sentence completely. There was such a beauty in that sentence about reading, going into retreating, see and connection. I'm going to repeat again, fluency is the rate at which we read and the accuracy with which we read. Fluency also builds, and when you have comprehension, and reading comprehension is the end goal of all reading. So I'm going to pause here and enough. The only reason we read is, my video is frozen, is the message I'm getting, but can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear your voice. Yes.
Okay, that's enough for this. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to also leave my seat and I'm going to go and restart my, my device for the Wi-Fi router and see if that works. But while I go, I'll still be talking to each one of you. And so what we are saying is the whole goal of language, especially in the younger classes, especially with children from nursery to class 3 and then class 4 and 5, where the maximum language capacity is developed. For you, it is very, very crucial that you bring in these practices for the children. And you understand that our only work is to support children to make meaning. And if they are not able to understand what they read, or they cannot understand, can you Preeti, can you hear me?
Jagruti, there is a lag actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to just a minute. Can you? Is it better?
Slightly better. There is a lag. Yeah. So,
okay, and I have restarted the Wi-Fi. So give me a second. I'll just go to that.
Sure. And participants, in the meantime, you can write your questions here. We'll take it up towards the end of the session. Yeah, I request participants, if you have any questions, you can post it here in the chat box. Yeah, so I think it was beautiful the way Jagrati has really, mentioned the meaning of prosodic reading, because frankly speaking, when I heard this term for the first time, it was really a new term for me. I did not know the meaning of it, but yeah, in the initial 5 minutes only, I got to know the meaning of it. And so beautifully, she's mentioned the meaning that prosodic reading is reading with beauty of narration, with emotional engagement with audience, expression of your feelings, wonder of reading. Wow. So, yes, now the meaning is very clear to me. And now we move on to the next section. I think Jagruti is back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you all see me?
Yes, Jagruti, we can.
Okay. I'm sorry about this, and thank you all for your patience. I'm hoping that it remains steady as we go ahead. I had a video also to share, but I think with these network issues, that will not be very useful. So if we were to just go back to the screen share, comprehension is the end goal of all reading, and that is the reason why even this reading mission and this whole work of Stones to Milestones exists, is so that we can make meaning. If we cannot make meaning, we cannot connect, we cannot build, we cannot grow. So everything has to become relevant and make meaning. And therefore, as a teacher of language or the teacher of any other subject, this is our important goal. And in order to have better fluency, which helps us to comprehend better, prosodic reading is a very strong element. So let's look a little deeper at what is prosodic reading. So here are the elements of prosodic reading. Pausing. Whenever we see punctuation, there is a comma, there's a semicolon, there's a question mark, there's an exclamation mark, there's a full stop. All of those don't stop at the comma. People will not know that we're talking of two different ideas or two different items. If we don't stop at a semicolon, people will not know that there are two different groups which may not have connection with each other, but yet are part of the same big group. If we don't stop at an exclamation mark, then we may lose the emotion that is contained, either fear or thrill or shock or surprise or anger. If we don't pause for the question, we may not be able to connect one from the other and connect to the curiosity that is conveyed by that punctuation mark. And of course, a full stop. So I'm hoping that you noticed how the voice is bringing the few punctuation marks alive. And these are basic punctuation marks. And it's very easy to do and something you can practice at home. The other is phrase by groups of words coming together. There was no phrasing, there was no chunking. And even when I'm speaking right now, you might notice that I pause when I want to say groups of words that go together. And this phrasing is very, very important because it gives the proper meaning. Even when sentences are very long, their sentence has parts, and each part has something to convey. The colorful red balloon flew high towards the sun god, versus the colorful red balloon flew high towards the sun god. I don't have to keep saying the same things again and again, just the examples will bring it alive for you. Also, what's important is where we stress and what the meaning comes from that. So here's the same sentence. The colorful red balloon flew high towards the sun god. So the emphasis is on the and high. Balloon, which we are already talking about, which has gone high. And that's what we are focusing on. And the other could be the colorful red balloon flew high towards the sky. So here the emotion is also different. And there is in the first one, there is something more intense. In the second one, there is something more joyful. And that all depends on which story this sentence is a larger part of. So we also have to know the context within which we know where to put the stress so that we get the correct meaning. And rate is also the pace at which we are reading. The colorful red balloon flew high towards the sun god in the sky. Towards the sun god in the sky. It has to reach the listener. It has to be neither too fast nor too slow. The colorful red balloon flew high. I shouldn't go on more and more with this, right? You're getting me. And intonation is the rise and fall of pitch to convey meaning. So let's move to the next slide. So these are the 5 elements that we need to take care of: pausing, phrasing, stressing, controlling the rate, and intonation. So how do we bring prosodic reading into the classroom? This is very important. As a teacher, the first thing is the way we do something, that is how children are going to learn. So you have to prepare yourself. So prepare the text. Don't just go into a text, into the classroom with a story. Read it at home first for yourself. Enjoy it. Make marks where you think the phrasing is till it starts coming naturally. Know where you want to pause, where you want to stress, underline the stress words. When you do this as a practice, you will also be able to guide children into doing the same for themselves. This is something that some of us are very natural at it, but even when I prepare something for a big audience and when something is formal, I do take this preparation time, I mark it, so I know to see what is going to really bring the meaning alive. Connect to the text and feel the emotions within yourself. Make it relevant for the reader's context. Bring them something to read that they will enjoy. Like for instance, for today, I wanted to choose passages which had something about reading, I wanted to choose a passage which featured a teacher, just so that we would connect to it better. I've even chosen a video with a personality whom all of us will know. Unfortunately, I think with my network issues, I may not be able to show it to you, but I'll try. But I've chosen a personality so that you all connect to it in a nice way. So make it relevant for the reader's context, otherwise you've lost them there and then. And read it with love, joy, and freedom. Okay, this is for you. And we also want to teach our children to read in this way. Not only do we want to read aloud to them in this way, whether you are doing this in social studies, whether you are teaching statistics, you can still do all this. And you can still have an audience that is rapt, because your voice has such magic in it. And for a teacher, you're a theater personality over there. You have to have a little bit of everything: the drama, the flamboyance, the humility, the connection. It's all heart work. So when we want to bring it into the class, here are the things that we want to do. Model it. Have intentional read aloud sessions which are interactive and where you're going to do prosodic reading. And maybe when I can show you the video, you will see how that works. And then there are different levels of guidance. First, after we do the modeling, we do a guidance with a high support level. So after you have modeled and you have read it out aloud, then you may put up a few sentences. And I just want to tell my team that please, if there is something, just pipe in, because I'm not going to keep track of chat while I'm into this so intensely. So if I'm not reaching you all, please just pipe in and let me know. Jagriti, slow down. Jagriti, we can't see you, we can't hear you. Okay, thank you. So first, there is a high support where the whole class kind of, plays with it and everything, and it's all there on the blackboard, and you give it to them and they try their hand. It's very playful, and you give some shaping to it as they are they're learning with each other and trying things out. Then we reduce the support a little bit, and we ask people to read individually. And they read familiar. So familiar text means at least 90% of what they're reading needs to be within their range of known words, understood words. Maybe about 10% is something which they have to guess at or they have to learn to pronounce. And we have to have that 10%, otherwise it's no fun. So individually, you might ask a child to read out loud a few lines, and then you give them feedback. And the final is you have reading conferences where they can give each other feedback. And you also provide feedback. Feedback is very, very important to help shape the talent. And then finally, practice. Create independent occasions, little competition, a little event, in the school also, where read alouds are done, where recitation is done, and where it is not in that sing-song way, but it's a really, really good example of not, when children, sometimes it's so jarring when they just sing. It's because they're not well trained. It's not their fault. They've just heard it like that. They've had bad teachers. They've had bad examples. And so for us, it's very, very important that this is such a delightful, lovely aspect of teaching language. And we really wish all of you, how can we support you to develop your talents at doing better prosodic reading. And finally, don't substitute prosodic reading for all your read aloud sessions. There should be just reading aloud, just for the fun of it, story time with children, where your modeling happens, but you don't necessarily get into teaching them about it. And then have intentional sessions where you say that today we're going to learn read aloud with expression, we are going to learn prosodic reading. I want you to notice how I am reading. And then we're all going to try to read little bits and see how we're doing. So I'm going to pause right now and I'll just check with my team. Tushar, do you think I could take a chance and beam the video and see whether we can see some of it? What do you think?
Yes, Jagrati, I think you can try that. Yeah, you can try.
Okay.
And
Um,
maybe in the
all
meantime,
right.
you could actually stop your video to have a better, bandwidth.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great idea. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen and I am going to share. Um, yeah, here she is.
Jagrati, I think it's not audible.
Sorry. Sorry, Preeti.
Yeah, that's not audible actually.
It's not audible.
Yeah,
Okay. So we will give the link to
yeah, we have.
everybody, and there are many such links. We'll give you quite a few links of good examples of prosodic reading, read alouds, intentional read alouds, which teachers hold. Unfortunately, we are finding more such examples and videos of something done in other countries, not India. But very soon, I think Team Stones to Milestones is going to start creating our own videos over here, which we can share with people. So, Preeti, I think I have shared a lot and I've been talking a lot. Um, I'd like to pause now and bring in some interaction.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely, Jagrati. It has been wonderful, wonderful, and we have learned so much. Especially for me, if I tell you frankly, because when you chose this topic to share, frankly, I did not know the meaning of it. So, and within first 5 minutes of your session today, the meaning was so beautifully explained, and I was actually going through the chat of the participants also. They also had the same feeling that yeah, it was a new topic for them and now they are comfortable with the meaning of it. And secondly, you have so beautifully kind of related this with our wow program, because you talked about it, that how prosodic reading will actually lead to fluency, and how fluency leads to comprehension. And and these are two most important components out of those five components of reading, on which our very wow program is based. So that was lovely and wonderful. um, Jagrati, we have a lot of questions. We have lot
Let's
of
go.
questions. So I'll take up a few of them.
Yeah.
I do not know how far I'll be able to take up all the questions. I'm clubbing them into some relevant categories, and then I'm picking up a few of them. So I'll start
Sure.
with first question, which is like actually so many teachers have asked. So a common question, and that is around techniques, especially in terms of engaging students in a more lively manner in the class. So how prosodic reading will help there? So I think this is a question that I have received from almost all teachers. Let us start with that, and as we actually go
Mhm.
deeper into answering these questions, I'm ready with more questions then. So the first question is how
Okay.
prosodic reading will help. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think if everyone on this webinar felt engaged when there was prosodic reading happening, um, that should be the answer in itself. But the main thing is for us to understand that we can only engage people when they get meaning out of it. And it's not important to do a song and dance and wear a colorful costume. All that helps. It's not important to be overly dramatic. It's important to be natural. It's important to respect your audience, and it's important to get down to the level of the audience with whom you are connecting. So I like to imagine all my work with children as a joy for me. And I think through that, and children are extremely receptive and very forgiving. They're very forgiving. They're so open. So it's much easier to engage a group of children than it would be a group of bored adults. Children respond to love, they respond to joy, they respond to authenticity. So I think these are the few basic parameters. And of course, we've talked a lot in this seminar about, developing yourself. How do you use your voice? How do you make sure that you are prepared? You have got the pronunciations right. You've got the meaning in your being, and it's being conveyed through your voice.
Yeah, lovely. And I loved it when you said that when you are to take a session, to teachers, when you said, so they have to first of all connect with the text themselves. So that's very important. And secondly, they have to be well prepared. So absolutely no compromise. So absolutely. My next question is actually related with one of the compliment that we have just received here. It's from Kanchan ma'am, and she's writing, really love the way Jagruti ma'am conducts the storytelling sessions. She must have attended, City of Stories. So the next question from one of the teachers is, how actually to make the storytelling sessions more effective and how to engage the lower grade children. So, yeah.
So pick a story that is relevant to them. If you pick a story about beings and characters and spaces which they don't know anything about, then take time to explain and set that context. So setting a context is important if the elements of what you're going to share are not familiar. If the elements are familiar, then make the connection that why is that story important, what's fun about it. Create a little bit of a mystery so that their curiosity is engaged. Mainly, if we look at our brain and we look at the part of our brain that has where learning, the seat of learning is. So Preeti, the seat of emotion is right next to the seat of learning, and the
Okay.
seat of fear is also right next to the seat of learning. And so, as a teacher, we need to constantly engage the seat of emotion in a positive way so that children can then be welcome and move towards and step into. But where there is fear, which is triggered, maybe there is some anxiety, and there may be some disturbance, children, then stop. Don't stop your agenda. Go, what is happening to you? Let's listen to what's happening in the class. Settle the class down. Always a soothing, kind, loving tone makes a lot of doors open up. And I also think that this question is not so much about how do we engage children. The question is more about how do we get children to, sit.
Yeah.
And I believe that when we make agreements with children, when we treat them like, people who can control themselves, and we make agreements that for the next 15 minutes, I want to read you a story. And what's important when I read you a story, they will themselves come up with, ma'am, we need to be quiet, ma'am, we need to do this, we need to do this, where should our hands be? Make agreements. And when they agree, then there is permission, and then we step in. I
That
hope this was satisfying to those who had this question.
I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. So yes, making agreements which are generally coming from children themselves. So I think that will definitely lead to effective storytelling session. So another question is, I also find it relevant because these days in the new normal situation we are going, we are doing virtual classes. So this next question is, which type of reading is more effective? The reader on the screen with prosodic reading, or just prosodic reading without the reader on the screen? Because now we are doing the online classes. So I found this relevant in the present circumstances.
Yeah,
So
interesting, and a little bit of both. Sometimes
mm,
you just want to use your voice. It depends on the purpose. Sometimes you just want students to connect. So there were a couple of examples today where I was on screen, but I was not engaging. And it was just, so in Zoom, you can use the just share audio function, and you can share the video function, and you can yourself be doing things. Mostly it is about your creativity and how you want to use it. And sometimes when you want your face also to do a lot of the communication along with the voice, it's important to have a video forum. Sometimes when they are older children and you want them, you can trust them that they don't need the face and they can connect just to the voice, and you may have a strong reason for using just the voice, then do just that. But for little children, I think a human face is very important.
Yeah, correct. So that, they can actually, read the expressions, that we are displaying, and they can learn from those expressions as well. So yes. Next question, again interesting. What are the tips through which every child's reading can be improved? So tips are prosodic reading, I'm sure, but what else?
Yeah, well, uh, children learn from the world around them. If children have adults who love reading, then children will love reading. They're more likely to love reading. So if as a teacher or a parent, you yourself hate reading, please have a lot of empathy for your child and do not expect them to fulfill your unfinished business. It's very clear. Develop the habit yourself first. Fall in love with reading. The rest of it flows from there. The other is surround yourself with books. The third is talk about books at dinner table, when you go to the park, when you're sitting in the car. Hopefully, all of us will be sitting in the car and going to parks very soon. But talk about it. Talk about reading. That is very important. And praise children when they read. I think I grew in my love for reading and my ability to read simply because of the encouragement of my parents, who valued this like many of us do. But they always spoke about me very highly, that our daughter reads so much. And so it just became something that I continued to do. And help them out. Don't mock them. Don't let them go away and do it by themselves, but help children out when they are stuck. Sit by them, read aloud, read with them, hear them read to you. It's a beautiful time to bond. Whether you're an educator or a parent, this reading aloud time is a very beautiful time to bond. And also through books, so much of life's wisdom comes alive. You can talk about situations like some bullying is happening. You can have a book from which the child draws something out, and then you can have a conversation around it. And don't restrict it only to the act of reading a book. Connect the book to a cinema that you saw. Talk about your own childhood when you something triggers. So connect the book to the world. So conversations along with reading aloud and developing relationship really, really deepens the act of reading.
So true, actually. So this is one of the questions from a teacher, again very relevant. When to start reading to a child? Like, is there any specific age, or should we start early, or should we wait for the child to come
I,
into school?
I read to them.
Yeah.
I read to my children when they were in my tummy.
Oh, lovely.
So yes, that's as early as you start. And so as a teacher, it should be, I mean, of course, when parents come to school, all the children have already been born. But this is something that, just we should know. Children they develop hearing by 6th month when they are in utero. And when a child is born, the magical thing, Preeti, is that the child can recognize the sound of the mother's voice. The child can recognize the father's voice. The child can also recognize some other voices which have been in the vicinity and which they've heard a lot. The child also responds to, and this has been measured by putting electrodes, on children's brains and measuring infant activities. Within the first 6 months or even shorter time, I don't remember, children can distinguish between their mother tongue and another language. So they've done this with babies who were born to a German mother and German speaking family. And when this family spoke in German to the child's brain cells, all responsive brain cells got activated. As soon as they switched to French or Italian or some other language, the child's attention became different. The areas of the brain which are attentive to the new things became active. So children know we are learning communication and learning language is like the sixth sense for us, and we are geared for that. Just as we are geared, at a normal rate, we will get up and walk, we'll get up and talk. We are geared for learning language. Our whole frontal cortex here, it's the biggest than any other animal has, and that's simply because this is where we process language. I'm so fascinated. I'm sorry if I'm taking long, but I'm so fascinated by how language develops. And if we understand that, then we can teach it better.
Yes, definitely. And that is why the entire, Wings of Words program is based on, 5 components of readings, which are very scientifically designed. Another question, which is actually relevant with the, mother tongue and additional language that the child would learn, is like, how does one counter the effect of regional dialect on reading in English? Do we really need to counter, or it should be like complementary? You learn a language and you pick up one dialect, and simultaneously you can pick up another dialect also.
Yeah.
So do we need to counter or what?
Yes. Yes.
So
So thank you so much for that word complimentary, because I think I got triggered. I am so fond of the English language, and yet I am so respectful and so fond of any and every language. I grew up in a Gujarati speaking home, and I learned all my speaking after I was 5 years old, when I went to school. And that's when I heard my teachers speak in English, and that's how, dire dire. And because I lived in South Mumbai, I developed this fancy accent or whatever. So yes, children are capable of learning 14 languages simultaneously. We must not underestimate their power. We must respect all languages. We must get our dialect right. If our dialect is right and we are providing the correct pronunciation to the children, they will do it. As an example, my boys, I'm born in a Gujarati family. I got married to a family that speaks Kutchi. My boys, when they were born, they were exposed to 3 languages simultaneously: Gujarati from my parents, Kutchi from my husband's parents, and English when we used it. At the age of 2 or 3, they would be able to turn to my parents and speak in fluent Gujarati with the same cadence and pronunciation that we use. They would turn to the other set of grandparents and switch over to Kutchi seamlessly with a kind of pronunciation which I cannot get today, because by the age of 8, we stop being able to imitate sounds more. And therefore, after the age of 8, we cannot change our dialect and our pronunciation and all of that so much. But before the age of 8, we can master it all. So you can speak Gujarati the way it's supposed to be spoken. You can speak French with the same pronunciation. You just have to get the right inputs.
so yes, they never counter. Yeah,
They only
great.
complement, and we must respect. And in
We
fact,
must.
multiple languages build each other.
That's even more interesting. So that means if you know more languages, your span of speaking different languages in the right manner, that will improve. Is that so?
Yes, absolutely, it will improve, provided you have good speakers of that particular language. And also, when you are multilingual, when this whole fascination of only English, well, I know it's a practical language, it rules the world, and we need to be competent at it, and we must do it. But knowing multiple languages actually makes you more capable of innovation, diverse thinking, because more parts of your brain get massaged when you are learning and switching between different languages.
Wow. Jagrati, teachers, they are always hungry to learn more and more. So, many of the teachers, they are also asking us, uh, do they get access to some resources so that they continue reading more about prosodic reading? Because, it was definitely a new topic for them, but very relevant at the same time. So, yes.
Yes, we are putting a package together. Even the PPT will come to you, the video resources will come, and also a note with some of the things that we talked about. So it will come. The rest of it, we hope you will go ahead and explore. It's a big wide world out there on internet. And I believe Tushar is saying that maybe a couple of teachers might like to interact. I think he's inviting people in, Preeti. That's his message. Yeah, Tushar, please go ahead. I think Subhashini ma'am is going to be speaking, and maybe she wants to ask something. So Subhashini ma'am, I can see you on my screen, and if you can unmute yourself, we could then hear you. Ma'am, are you able to unmute yourself?
Maybe in the meantime, can I take up one more question, Jagrati, if you allow me?
Yes, I think we can do that, yeah, while Tushar figures this thing out. Sorry, ma'am, we're still working with the techniques of it. Yeah, go ahead, Preeti.
So while we are actually dealing with, inculcating love of reading for young children, I got this interesting question here. Any tips to encourage adults to pursue reading? Because, adults will actually encourage reading into young ones also. So I think, yeah,
Yes.
this is relevant.
Have reading conferences for your parents. Have reading conferences for your parents. Bring them to school, once a month. Read something aloud to them. Make it enjoyable. Explain to them the importance of how, if they start taking to reading, that is the best message and gift they can give to their children. As parents, we start doing many new things simply because we want our children to do it, right?
Correct.
So why not this?
Absolutely. Aligned. Now, another input here. So new topic, very well explained.
I'm so glad you talked about that pair, adults, because that partnership is important. It's not all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about
Go ahead, Preeti. I think our voices are clashing, but I'm silent now and listening to you.
Yeah, so yes, I said yes, you were talking about partnership, and on Freedom app also we just talk about that partnership wherein 10 to 15 minutes of reading time the parents they spend with children. Jagrati, this is for you, a new topic explained very well by Jagrati ma'am. It was very engaging and effective session. So this is for you, Jagrati.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so
Jagrati, I think we can take one more question because we are now towards the end of the session. So, can you allow me to take one last question here? Okay, participants.
So, Preeti, I'm thinking that.
Yes, go ahead, Jagrati.
Yes. Sure. We could do that. I have turned my video off because I believe my voice is not fully reaching. There's a lag. So is this better? Yeah, I'm going to put it on chat.
Yes, Jagrati, yes. So, in fact, there is a question, if you can hear me. Is it necessary for a child to know phonics to read accurately?
It's helpful, not necessary.
All right.
It is very helpful, not necessary. And now, we must do it because it's a shortcut, especially if children are not from an English is not their native language. Then phonics is a very, very, very useful thing for them to develop accuracy, for them to develop. But phonics by itself, without doing everything else, is not useful. It's just tricks.
So, okay, Jagriti, thank you so much. Though we have a lot of questions still to answer, we'll see how far we are able to answer, and if we could actually, send some of the responses through mail, we'll try to do that. Yes, in the meantime, one more question. Is it compulsory for readers to be on screen while doing prosodic reading? I think we have already answered that. It really video, you're just playing audio, so they also have their own importance. But while doing narration, the speaker, the host should be on video. Yes. So thank you so much, participants. Thank you so much for your time. I really cannot thank you enough for taking out time on a weekend and for being there. We assure you that these kinds of exercises we will continue in future also. And so, yes, your ideas, your inputs are important in terms of what you feel, we should take up. Um, yes, thank you so much. Explained very well, explained very clearly. So all this is for you, Jagrati. And for you, Jagrati, I cannot really thank you enough. Your love for language and your love for teaching language are really, really evident. You teach with passion and you engage participants with love. So that's what we felt today. And yes, interesting session, new session for all of us. I hope you continue sharing your love with us in future as well. So with this, we would like to draw curtain to today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. Keep learning and keep progressing. Bye-bye.